consider the square root of x plus 1 equals 7. So I'm going to square both sides, and I get x plus 1 equals 49, so x equals 48. I plug that back in. 48 plus 1 is 49, square root of 49 is 7, so this one works. But if I had x plus 2 equals negative 3, I square both sides, x plus 2 equals 9, and I subtract 2, x equals 7. Now I plug that in. 7 plus 2 is 9, and the square root of 9 is not negative 3. So why does the first one work and the second one doesn't? So why is this a problem? Right. The square root of x is greater than or equal to 0 in all cases. Okay? So what's happening over here on the right side is we are taking a negative number and squaring it, which eliminates the negative. So that act of squaring creates an incorrect answer. For the same reason that if we had x squared equals 9 and I square rooted it, x equals plus or minus 3. So when you square root an x squared, you create two answers. Well, this is the opposite of that. So there are two ways to make this work algebraically, either with a 3 or a negative 3. But because this is the plus version of the square root, and not the minus version of the square root, then the square root and the actual answer don't line up. Does that make sense? So whenever this number over here is negative, then your square root simply can't work. So nobody noticed this yesterday, but if I had 4 plus the square root of x minus 5 equals 2, does this have a solution? No. Right. If I subtract the 4 over, I get the square root of x minus 5 equals negative 2. There is no way for a square root to equal a negative number. So 4 minus the square root of x minus 5 equals 2. Now I subtract 4, so we're just testing the negative version of the square root. Can the square root of x, the negative square root of x minus 5 equal negative 2? Yes, that is possible. Right, can that be true? No, it can't. Now the trouble is, today, we won't be able to tell beforehand whether or not it's going to work. So if you look at number 1 on your worksheet, do I know if number 1 is going to work? I don't know. How come? Well, what is the value of n? We don't know. Is it positive or is it negative? Well, if n comes out to be positive, it's going to work. If n comes out to be negative, it's not going to work. So we're going to actually have n equals 2 values. If both of those values are positive, then this is going to have 2 solutions. If both of those values are negative, it will have no solutions, but we don't know until we solve it. So I'm going to square both sides. I get the square root of 110 minus n, oops, no square root anymore, equals n squared. How should I solve this? Move them all to the left, so it's going to be plus n minus 110. So now it equals 0. So that's going to be n plus 11 and n minus 10. So my answers are n equals negative 11 and n equals 10. Are both of those valid solutions? No. The negative 11 can't work because if I plug negative 11 in here, there's no way for this to equal negative 11. So if you don't understand those little tricks, just go ahead and plug them both in. So we have square root of 110 minus 10 equals 10. Is that true? 110 minus 10 is 100. Square root of 100 is 10, so yes. What about the square root of 110 minus negative 11 equals negative 11? Well, that simplifies down to the square root of 121 equals negative 11, which is almost true, but the sign's the wrong way, so that one doesn't work. Well, just because this is negative does not, or the negative one doesn't work, doesn't mean that all negatives are not going to work. Let's look at number 7. So I square this and square this. 4n equals n squared. How would you solve that? Move it all on one side, so n squared minus 4n. How does that factor? N times n minus 4. So the roots are 0 and 4. Do both of those work in this case? Can a square root equal 0? Yes. Can a square root equal 4? Yes. So in that case, they both work. All right, number 11. We square both sides. B squared equals negative 4 plus 4b. Move everything to the left this time. B squared minus 4b plus 4. That actually factors into a perfect square. So b equals 2 is the only solution. You could plug 2 in to see if it works, but we're smarter than that. We can just look at it and say, yes, it does work, because square roots can equal 2. So yes, both of those work. All right, what about, turn the page. How about 21? I now have a square root equals a binomial. So I'm going to square this and square that as a total. So I get 4n plus 8 equals, we should be pretty good with squaring binomials by now. N squared plus 3n, which turns out to be plus 6n plus 9. So I'm going to subtract 4n and subtract 8 minus 4n minus 8. N squared plus 2n minus, no, plus 1. How does that factor? N plus 1, n plus 1. So n equals negative 1. Well, can n be negative 1? Yes. Because it's really negative 1 plus 3, which becomes a positive 2, and can a square root equal a positive 2? Yes. So just because this is negative doesn't mean it's not a solution. You have to plug it back in to check to see if it's a solution or not. All right, let's do the very last one. 28. How would you set up 28? We got to add the a, so this one becomes a minus 6. Square both sides. 7a minus 54 equals a squared minus 12a plus 36. So I'm going to subtract 7a and add 54. A squared minus 19a plus 90. So a minus and a minus, 10 and 9. So a equals 10 and 9. Now these are positive. Does that guarantee that they work? No. You have to stick them back in at least into this part. So 10 minus 6 is 4. Is that okay? Yes. 9 minus 6 is 3. Is that okay? Yeah. What if one of my answers was 3? Would that have worked? No, because 3 minus 6 would have been negative 3, and there's no way for a square root to equal a negative 3. At least there's no way for a positive square root to equal a negative 3. Okay? So the philosophy for years had been just plug the numbers back in and see if they work, but we're a lot smarter than that. We know why they don't work, and so you can save yourselves a lot of time by just checking the non-square root side. As long as the non-square root, the sign of the non-square root side equals the sign of the square root side, then the answer exists. If there's a difference between those two signs, then it wouldn't work. It is possible to get two answers that both don't work, which means there's no solution overall. And that does happen on the worksheet once. You'll see the answers here in a second. All right. So the practice test is handed out now. If you're going to be gone Friday, I would start it today so that you can ask your questions tomorrow. I'm not going to be here Friday, but Leslie will be here, and she's as smart or smarter than I am, so she can help you out. And the test will be on Monday. So, except for Amy, she wants to take it on Tuesday, but it's worth 0 on Tuesday. So you can still do it. Then I don't have to grade it. You're welcome. Okay, good luck.